Hello everyone, it is Skyz here, and welcome back to yet another Fallout 76 build video. Today's build video I have for you is an explosive build video. By that, you're going to be using launchers and grenades. Really, this is just my grenade build, but with a few tweaks. So I'll link that one in the description. I think that build still holds up pretty well, but as always, we're just going to jump straight into the video with perks and mutations. Alrighty, always starting out with mutations, I have Adrenal Reaction, Egghead, Herd Mentality, Marsupial, and Unstable Isotope. Shouldn't need Unstable Isotope on here, but this is left over from when I was a melee build back pre-Wastelanders, so don't worry about that. Marsupial is pretty much a given. I cannot play this game without Marsupial. The extra jump height and carry weight is fucking awesome. Herd Mentality, because sometimes I do like to play with the team, and when I do play on a team, I do like to get just a few extra, benefits for playing on a team. So Herd Mentality is really good for that one. Egghead for the extra intelligence, which equals extra XP, and then Adrenal Reaction. As my health gets lower, I do more and more damage. So pretty alright. And for the base special on this build, you're going to want 9 strength, 5 perception, 8 endurance, 7 charisma, 14 intelligence, 6 luck, or 6 agility, and 7 luck. So not too bad. Gonna get on top of the stage here. So let's go into the perks. You're going to see I have quite a few different things, but should, be all relatively the same as my grenade build video, except for a few minor tweaks, mainly in strength. So bear arms, because this character has so little extra carry weight that having bear arms is kind of a necessary one. Obviously, just reduces your heavy gun weight by 90%. If you find a explosive weapon that has 90% reduced weight, absolutely keep it. Probably the best slot for that third perk. But if you don't, then bear arms will basically do the same thing for you. Ordnance Express reduces the weight of explosives by 90%, absolutely necessary. Cannot live without it. And then blocker. This is one of the few, or not one of the few, one of the many tank perks I have. Blocker reduces opponents' melee attacks by 45%, basically making super mutants who use like boards and shit. I'm trying to think, god damn it. Scorch use melee weapons, feral ghouls, scorch beasts, like basically a lot of the enemies, their melee attacks, they use them. So having this is pretty much necessary. In perception, fire in the hole, because I still like to use grenades, so fire in the hole makes me be able to throw them further while also being able to see where the fuck I'm throwing them, so it's not like Stalker where I have to guess. And here I can get a pretty good estimate on what the hell I'm going to do. And then Grenadier, probably the most important perk on this list in my opinion. Basically just increases your radius by 2 times. Tier made a really good video on this in particular, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. But if you're doing explosive build, Grenadier is a fucking must. In endurance, Life Giver, as excusing explosives, I'm going to probably end up killing myself every so often, so Life Giver just gives me some extra HP to play with before I do end up dying. Adamantium Skeleton is probably the most important tanky perk, purely just because you're using explosives, you're going to cripple yourself, so having no limb damage whatsoever, absolutely awesome. I'm glad they just didn't make it 90% reduce damage, so they made it completely eliminated. Absolutely awesome. It's a must. Fireproof, yet again, sort of entwines with Adamantium Skeleton. This just reduces your explosive attack or explosive damage that you receive and flame damage by 45%. This also goes for the Sonic Blasts the Scorch Beast will use, so absolute must on pretty much any build. Maybe except for like a Bloodied Stealth Commando where you're gonna Anyway, Chem Fiend, because I use chems to buff up my damage just a little bit, and using things like buff tats increases my strength for carry weight and endurance for health. So having Chem Fiend is going to be very nice. On into Charisma, I have Suppressor. This reduces the damage I take from enemies. Kind of a niche one, but I actually really like Suppressor. Tenderizer, probably not gonna really need it, but again, free damage is free damage, so I highly recommend that one. And Lone Wanderer takes 20% less damage while not in a team and 30% AP regen. Absolutely necessary for a build like this. If I'm playing on a team though, I'll swap out that for Inspirational and Traveling Agents. You know, you pay 30% less caps while fast traveling and 15% extra XP while in a team. But since I'm not, I'm going to keep using Lone Wanderer. Now, Intelligence, you're going to have it at max, so you can really use what you want. The two I really recommend, though, is well, the ones that are an absolute must is Power User. Increases your fusion core duration, is doubled, so fucking amazing. And then Demolition Expert. This just increases your, explosives damage by plus 60%, so not too bad. And then in here, I'm currently using First Aid. I did have level 3 First Aid, but being a dipshit, I actually turned that into coins. So in the meantime, I have 2, but I highly recommend getting 3. If you don't want to use this, you can use batteries included to reduce your fusion core weight by a little bit, but I don't really need it, so I usually end up just having First Aid on. I'll keep it on for now though. Nerd Rage, as your health, or if your health is below 20%, you gain 40% or 40 damage resistance, 20 damage, or 20 times. And then we got Nerd Rage. While below 20% health, you gain 40 damage resistance, 20% damage, and 15% AP regen. This kind of sort of intertwines with Lone Wanderer and is an absolute must. And then really the last point, you can put whatever in. I currently use Scrapper, but you can throw on, if you're using batteries included, you can use level 1 First Aid. You can use level 1 Gunsmith, which is pretty nice. But I like to use Scrapper because I do like to scrap my things for other things, as I should put it. And Agility! Action Boy for that, action point regen. This character only has 100, so constantly being able to regen is going to be kind of unnecessary. And then Dodgy. Since Serendipity doesn't work, using Dodgy works. I don't have a lot of AP either, so not sure how effective this is, but just the 30% chance to avoid any incoming damage is absolutely awesome, and I love it. And then lastly but not least, in luck, Bloodied Mess. Obviously, it's free damage. Why wouldn't you take it? Search Genes is a, kind of self-explanatory. Ricochet for extra tankiness. I personally like Ricochet. I'm not sure most people do, but I personally do. And then Last Laugh. This is more of like a fun perk. I had an extra pointer, so I threw in Last Laugh. But if you wanted to use Pharma, Class Freak, basically anything you want, you can always use that as well. But I like using Last Laugh because I like carrying a shit ton of grenades. Legendary Intelligence for extra intelligence, and then Legendary Endurance, Luck, and Charisma also for extra stats. This right here, Sizzling Style, increases your fire damage resistance by 100. This intertwines with explosives yet again, so at max, having 200 extra fire damage resistance is a fucking must. And then the last one, you can really use whatever. Currently using Detonation, Condemnation, but if you wanted to use Funky Duds for extra poison resistance, because poison kind of fucks you up, you can really use whatever you want, but I personally just kind of like to go with that one. Where the hell is it, this guy? The extra explosion also gets affected by Grenadier again, so just, yeah, it's lovely. And that's really the entire build there, but Obviously, a build cannot be powerful without weapons or armor, aka gear, so we'll get into that now. Alrighty, and for weapons, well, gear in general, but we'll start with weapons because they're the more fun part. Grenades, obviously you're gonna use grenades. I personally love plasma grenades. They're fucking awesome. They're really easy to craft, and I generally think they're the best grenade in the game if you're not going to use the Nuka grenades. But the Nuka Quantum grenade, I like a little bit more. I prefer the blue explosive effect. But really, you can use really whatever you want. I use crowd grenades for a while. I use baseball grenades. Really, any grenade will work. I just personally would stay away from Molotov cocktails because the Molotov cocktails are not, you know, a grenade. Or really any of the flamer ones either, maybe except for maybe the flame one. But that's besides the point though. When it comes to weapons, you can use whatever you want. You can use the auto grenade launcher, the missile launcher, the Fat Man, and like the quad barreled I'm trying to think what the fuck I think it's called, but you can use those. I personally currently am running a auto grenade launcher and a Fat Man with 2-shot. 2-shot is fucking the greatest thing on explosive builds by far, because the projectile isn't what does the damage. It's the explosion that comes from the projectile that does the damage. So it will double the projectile, but you would get double the explosion, including double the damage. It works way differently on other weapons, but when it comes to explosives, you're literally getting double damage. So we're literally, if you're using anything else, you're kind of dumb. You should be using 2-shot. VATS, you can use VATS on this build. My build isn't built around VATS, but that's besides the point though. I prefer the auto grenade launcher. Kind of makes a cool thunk, you know. Boom, too. And then we got, of course, got a Fat Man. You cannot have any build without a Fat Man. And just before we get into anything else, I'm gonna pull out some mini nukes here because, you know, a Fat Man in Fallout 4 would instantly kill me. But oh, that guy exploded. If I was to, you know, shoot myself here, barely a fucking scratch. Barely. So, and that is really a result of the armor, which of course I'm using Hellcat. On any of my heavy gun builds, I'm using Hellcat. Really just a mix mash of random shit. I would much prefer a full set of Overeaters because it increases damage reduction, not damage resistance, reduction. This works completely different to damage and energy resistance. Reductions literally every point of damage is being reduced. It's not doing some math equation. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I'm pretty sure Angry Turtle's done a video on it, but Hellcat for that reason. Also because of the -2 ballistic weapons damage. 99% of the enemies who use guns will end up using ballistic weapons, so having that's also awesome. Basically making Hellcat, in my opinion at least, the best power armor in the entire game. There's no reason why you shouldn't be using Hellcat for any sort of tanky build, in my opinion. Of course, the helmet doesn't have an explosive effect, but Overeaters is a must. If you end up getting Vanguards, that's fine too. I used to have one set of bolstering, or one piece of bolstering. Doesn't really matter what is on these. Preferably explosive damage reduced, or the fire resistance pleasure effect as well. And then obviously the third one doesn't really matter, but weapons is always very nice, because, well, you're gonna be carrying a lot of weapons and you're gonna want that. And that really goes for gear. Not sure how to use this build outside of power armor because sort of built this whole thing around it, but you probably could if you made a few tweaks, maybe using Brotherhood of Steel, Recon Armor, or Secret Service. Now when it comes to buffs, there's not really a whole lot you can use. I personally really like bobbleheads here. For instance, I got here the explosive bobblehead that adds plus 30 explosive damage. Not a super major buff, but if you really need a buff, then by all means go ahead and use the plus 30 explosive damage one. Fun fact, this is the only damage one that actually increases by 30. Every other one does it by 20. So I don't know why, because explosive builds are kind of busted. But plus 30 is always nice. And then there's like there's magazines and all that, but I'm not really a big fan of magazines because I hate farming for magazines. But I personally really like to use Psycho buff. Plus 25% damage, plus 3 strength, plus 3 endurance, and plus 65 max HP for 3 minutes. Why would you not want to use that? There's also buff tats, obviously. But, you know, Psycho buff's always a little better. Psycho. There's really a multitude of things you can use to buff yourself up. And I think that goes for the build. There's not really much else I can really talk about. But as always, I do think I have a decently cool, trying to think, I have a decently cool story for this guy, I think. So we'll get into that now. Boom grew up in the ash heap under the protection of the fire breathers. Not much else is known about Boom, including his real name, age, or what he even looks like. He tends to be a lone wanderer of sorts, roaming the waste, scavenging pre-war military camps and installations for new explosive weapons, and of course to keep his pockets lined full of grenades. It is said he killed a small detachment of Hellcat mercenaries and took their power armor, but this is only just a rumor. Boom isn't one to shy away from helping those in need. He tends to help the Foundation settlers on a regular basis. All we do know is that he communicates using sign language. He probably became deaf because of the constant explosions he uses. And that's about it. That's all I really came up with for this guy. I don't see him being aligned with his particular faction or, you know, any of the sorts. He's kind of like a loner and stalker. Just kind of picking out missions as he goes, and does what he really wants to do. But his main objective in life is to seem to make the biggest explosions possible. And I think that about wraps up this build video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you guys did enjoy it, leave a like, comment, subscribe, comment down below your favorite particular grenade in Fallout 76. Obviously mine is the plasma grenade, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.